Okay, folks, what in the hell is going on with Senator John Fetterman? The more this guy speaks now, the more sense he makes. It's gotten to the point where I actually don't mind hearing what John Fetterman has to say. Of course, we all remember Fetterman's rise to relevance. He took down Dr. Oz after concerns about his own health. John Fetterman had that stroke. Well, remember the wardrobe that he used to wear dominated his campaign. He wears the hoodie, still wears the hoodie. We were out, listen, I got to tell you, I was one of the first people to say the guy's got to be more respectful to the office of the Senate and to the chamber and to the body and to the American people. But you know what? I'm kind of starting to like this guy. At the time, there were instances of cluelessness that kind of raised all sort of red flags. Remember, he had just had that stroke. We weren't even sure if he could read. He was saying things that didn't make sense. But here we are, 2025. The Pennsylvania senator seems to be as level-headed as ever. Listen to this guy.
Like, it's really common sense. And I'd like to remind everybody that we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of migrants here illegally that have convicted of crimes. And why, I don't know why, who wants to defend, to allow them to remain in our nation after that? And now, if you're here illegally and you're committing crimes and those things, I don't know why anybody thinks that it's controversial that they all need to go.
Do you think that this was one of, if not the biggest issue for this election?
Well, I think if we can't, there's 47 of us in the Senate, and if we can't pull up with 7 votes, if we can't get at least 7 out of 47, and if we can't, then that's the reason why we lost. That's one of them. That's one of why we lost, in part.
Oh my gosh, it's shock and awe on the left when the senator from Pennsylvania is admitting that the border was one of the reasons why they lost the election. By the way, if you're listening on radio, he's wearing a black hoodie. He looks a little like Uncle Fester. I'm sorry, I said it. Folks, coming from a Democrat, though, the angle on the southern border that he took is a big deal. This entire party on the left wants to leave the doors wide open for all the world's criminals and murderers. But Fetterman, he's siding against basically all of his peers. Enough is enough, he said. Quote, they've got to all go. They've got to all go. Imagine a Democrat saying that. Honestly, Fetterman sounded disappointed in his own party, and he should be. Did you hear him say, that's the reason we lost? He knows that the immigration and the mass invasion of our southern border and other borders, but the southern border specifically from people around the world, Chinese, Taliban perhaps, people, hundreds, maybe thousands of people on the terror watch list, the FBI's own terror watch list, we know for a fact have come through this country in the last 4 years. That's on Biden. But Fetterman knows that this was a top election issue and probably understands that his fellow Democrats did themselves a major disservice by playing politics with our national security. Clearly, the American public, voting public, was pissed off too. That clip caught the attention of Elon Musk, by the way, who gave Fetterman his flowers for being the rare Democrat who speaks with logic and reason. Elon said, and I'm quoting, Fetterman is based, which means honest and truthful. And honestly, I'm starting to agree. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I agree with them. Thank you, John Fetterman, this is Bolling talking, for defying the radical and dangerous rhetoric put out by your political peers on the left. Maybe if more Democrats thought like you, the past election would have been moderately competitive, but it wasn't. So I'm glad it wasn't. I'm glad we got Trump, and I'm glad people like Fetterman are being honest and true, saying, hey, American people, they spoke. They want the southern border secured. Moving on, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, probably the worst mayor in this country, just got absolutely obliterated by a reporter who pressed him on his miserable polling. Take a listen to this hysterical exchange.
Recent polls show 76% of those surveyed say Chicago would be better off with a different mayor. How do you convince them otherwise?
Well, look, the people of Chicago elected me to invest in people. In every single category as it relates to investments, they're up. I actually am humbled that the people of Chicago believe in my administration enough to have greater expectations than any other administration. That's what leadership looks like, and I'm humbled to do it.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that there's greater expectations? I don't know where I hear that. Because,
yeah.
and then the feedback instead is that the polling is poor. So how do I don't know how you interpret it that way.
Well, because maybe because I'm a middle child. Maybe it's because I'm a Bears fan. By the way, the Bears are undefeated in 2025, so we're off to a great start.
Have anything
Here's
to do
what
with
I'm saying, though. Look, the people of Chicago voted for me to invest in them, and that's exactly what we've done. And I'm going to continue to do that.
She was right. You're getting smoked in the polls, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. You're getting smoked in the polls, and when the reporter pushes back, how can you even say the people are giving you a mandate? And he said, well, maybe it's because of the Bears. The freaking Bears? Are you nuts? The mayor started talking about his favorite football team. Where the hell are the Democrats finding these clowns? Because that's what he is. Chicago, my hometown, an absolute mess. But let's not act confused about why people really thought that inserting Brandon Johnson, a total clown, to replace another total clown, Lori Lightfoot, clown show in Chicago, folks, would rid the city of its many burdens and ills. Well, here's a thought. What's the windy city of Chicago known for? Well, could it be the Bulls, their iconic basketball team? The Bulls' colors are primarily red and white and black. I think that during the next election cycle, the city should look the same. Get some Republican leadership in there. Instead of running it back with another unqualified DEI hire, a darling who can't tell their head from their ass. Lori Lightfoot, Brandon, let's go Brandon Johnson. Just a thought. Moving on, did anyone see the cover of the New York Post today? This is pretty fascinating. And if you're listening on radio, you can't really see. So we have the New York Post that says instead of the Monroe Doctrine, the Dunroe Doctrine, which is really fascinating. It's a map. I think what makes this so great, this cover, is that Trump actually believes that this is possible. And we're talking about Canada. We're talking about Greenland. We're talking about possibly Panama. It's really fascinating. Trump's been campaigning for American expansion. And whether you love Trump or hate Trump, you have to give the guy credit for putting his plans on the table. Besides Canada, now, Canada could use our help right now, and their citizens would agree. I told you about the time I was in a restaurant. A Canadian citizen came up and said, please, please make us your 51st state. Greenland is sitting on a lifetime supply of natural minerals. Rare earth minerals, which Trump would certainly put to good use. And we basically have handed Panama and the canal over to Panama and China, really, for no reason. Expanding our sphere of influence might sound crazy, but with proper execution and leadership, who's to say America wouldn't be much better for it? Let me just point something out. Greenland is a very strategically placed country. It's got eyes around the northern hemisphere. It's a great place for us to have even more military presence. We have some, but even more. And it's a massive, massive mine for rare earth minerals that we use in our phones, in our cars, everywhere. Really, really strategic. So is the Panama Canal. Panama Canal it saves us hundreds of billions of dollars from having to ship things all the way around the bottom. Instead, you go right through the canal. It's another very strategic asset. And then Canada. Who wouldn't love? Our markets, if we owned Canada, we drop the trade barrier between the two. We get Canadian oil. There's a ton of Canadian oil. We'd love to have that. Canada would be great, as long as it's the 51st United States. But I digress. All right, let's go rapid fire for a minute. Here's a lot to get to today. So if you ever needed proof about the impact of leadership, just look here at the message Mexico is sending to their illegals who are destroying our country.
President Claudia Sheinbaum says Mexico will welcome back its citizens, even releasing a special music video dedicated to migrants.
Where we are from, no,
Welcome back. Come on back. Trump's sitting you back. So they're going to get a music video for these folks, these people. Isn't that amazing? Trump hasn't even set his bags down at the White House yet, and Mexican leadership is literally singing to their invaders, telling them all, come home. We're working with Trump in America. As Mexico serenades their aliens, things aren't too sunny right now on The View. Of course, I'm referring to the arrogant Sunny Hostin, whose husband is in quite a bit of trouble right now, by the way. Her surgeon husband was just accused of insurance fraud in a sweeping RICO case that names nearly 200 possible offenders. I wonder how she's going to defend this one. Before I move on, Donald Trump just responded to Canada's ruling party, we played that for you yesterday, who put out this map seemingly shutting down any thoughts of Canada joining the United States. But in typical Trump fashion, alliteration, he and his team clapped right back with a map of their own, showing both the U.S. and Canada covered in red, white, and blue. Folks, this is what the next 4 years are going to be like. Trump is going to go for it. He's going to go for it all. I'm going to love watching all of this play out. We finally have a leader who will put it all out on the table and fearlessly advocate for his ideas to whomever is asking. Maybe they're not even asking. He's going to put it out there. The transparency is refreshing, and we will very soon be in a much better place for it.